Mars, the god of war, the ruler of Aries. There's a Tesla Roadster flying towards it in space. Maybe that's as far as you know about the red planet, but what does it mean then in the context of an astrological chart? Well, I made this video to answer that very question. So let's get the short answer out of the way first. So your Mars placement can tell you about your ability to assert yourself, how you express frustration and even anger, and basically how you go after what it is that you want. That's it, that's the short answer. If you want to know more, please stick around because it's about to get far more interesting. Alright, to kick off the long answer, let's consider the mythological figure of Mars. So he was the god of war. The Roman name was Mars and the Greek name was Ares. Important to note that this is not the same as Aries, although of course this planet is the ruling planet of the sign of Aries, but it is slightly distinct. So the Greek Ares was the son of Zeus, and he was known for finding delight in battle for its own sake. He was feared even by his followers, and that's interesting to note that there were no dedicated temples, there were no temple of Mars, and there were no shrines or other sacred places except obviously battlefields. He was the twin brother of Eris or Discordia, giving you both names there, which I think says a lot, and it shows that these are kind of two sides, the masculine side and the feminine side of basically causing chaos, getting in there and shaking things up and being kind of slightly unpredictable or even untethered in a sense. In that vein, it's interesting to note that Mars is often known for losing his cool in battle and perhaps even turning into like a hot-headed berserker archetype. Someone just sees red and just thrashes around and just strikes at everything that he can see, everything around him. And this total loss of anything, loss of interest in anything besides the task at hand is interesting considering a Mars placement, because depending on your Mars placement, if, as I said at the beginning, if your Mars placement shows how you go after what you want, perhaps this set that you can see what kind of Mars you're going to be. If you're going to be the berserker who just kind of thrashes around, or if you're going to be more focused, for example, if you've got your Mars in Capricorn, you're going to be better at strategizing and planning and this kind of thing. I mentioned about frustration as well, that can be shown by the Mars placement. Very very similar again to the berserker thing. It can show how you express it or not, as the case may be. Either probably if you've got strong difficult aspects with Saturn going to your Mars placement, it can be kind of a bottleneck, things that you keep your emotions kind of suppressed and you don't let them out, and then of course inevitably then they're going to erupt in ways that you can't control and that really don't really work for you, you know. If you've got your Scorpio, if your Mars is in Scorpio, you're more likely to be kind of passive aggressive when you are pissed off at someone. Maybe you could also bottle up if you've got a Libra Mars as well. You don't want to offend people, so you just kind of keep it in and you don't want to get mad at anybody. Another thing covered by your Mars placement is your relationship to physical activity. So I'd say that it's interesting to consider probably all sport that we've ever invented as human beings is basically a substitute for war, really, or at least it fulfills many of the same functions within the psyche, and your Mars placement points to exactly those functions. So people with strong Mars placements would do well to find an outlet for this like urge to do, right? Physical exercise is a really obvious way to get that out. Playing sport, because it ticks a lot of boxes. It's actual physical exertion, using the muscles which are ruled by Mars, and also competition, I think. And you can find competition other ways, doesn't have to be physical. Video games, card games, board games, even in business, you know. But you need to find some kind of way to express, as I say, this urge to do something, which Mars is always going to want to do. Something else that's covered by your Mars placement is a portion of your sexuality. Now it's very interesting to note when we consider that Mars, Ares basically didn't get on with any of the other gods on Olympus in the Greek pantheon. Fought with them, they fell out with them, whatever it was. Only one he got on with was Aphrodite, who of course was the goddess of love, or goddess of sex, really. They were lovers. Aphrodite did manage to seduce Mars, and it's worth noting that as they lay in bed after having sex was the only time that Ares is shown to be at rest. Essentially, he was spent, really. It's almost like he met his match in the embodiment of sex, which was of course Aphrodite or Venus. It's interesting that we use what is essentially the glyph for Mars to denote masculinity, and we use the Venus glyph for femininity, right? That Mars, people with strong Mars placements will have this kind of thing of machismo, something as well in the 80s. I wasn't around for the 80s, but I know from like GTA Vice City they talked about people having like medallions with like the masculine symbol. Like Austin Powers as well, he had one as well. This kind of idea of like machismo, I think, comes from strong Mars placements, really. And it's interesting as well to note, sad but also interesting to note, that our male dominated world, it is, or certainly was, if not hopefully a bit less now, seen as acceptable for men to own and display their Mars placement, and all that comes in, whether it's being combative, whether it's about being ambitious, whether it's going for what they want, or if it's like the male masculine sex drive and so on. Whereas women were basically beaten or looked down on or ostracized or whatever for doing the same with feminine sexuality. And maybe that's because the more masculine side of sexuality is, as I say, it's more proactive, and perhaps that's seen as more compatible with the male dominated society. So all these kind of things I think are covered by your Mars placement. Alright, those are my thoughts on Mars in the chart. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more of these astrology based videos, you can let me know by hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, and let me know using your words by leaving me a comment below. That'd be even better. Alright, well, hope to see you next time. Cheers.